I kept my job, and it almost broke me. That's not the story you're supposed to tell. You're supposed to be grateful. The morning the layoffs hit my floor, 19 people were walked out by lunch. I wasn't one of them. She kept me. And for the next year, being the one who stayed felt worse than being cut. Why would that be? Stay with me. It's not the reason you think. I'd been there 11 years. I was good at the boring, load-bearing parts, the reconciliations, the quiet handoffs, the work that only gets noticed the day it breaks. My manager ran our group. I'll call her the one who went quiet, because that's the part that ended up mattering. Before the cuts, she was ordinary, present, enough. After them, she was reachable only in the way that made everything worse. That year looked like this from my desk. I answered every message inside 2 minutes. I stayed until the parking garage was almost empty, and I said thank you constantly. Thank you for keeping me. Thank you for the chance. I said it so many times the words went flat in my mouth. I called it loyalty. Or I wanted to. Honestly, it was fear wearing a nicer coat. One question sat under all of it. If 19 people were expendable in the spring, what exactly made me safe in the fall? I didn't have an answer. So I tried to become impossible to cut. It didn't work. What came after did. 4 quiet things. And I still do all of them. Then the ground kept moving. A reorg got announced with a slide deck and no names. Boxes on a chart, arrows, a promise that details were coming. The details never really came. I watched how she communicated in that fog, and it taught me everything. Ask her to move a meeting? Thumbs up in 9 seconds. Send a logistics question about a report? Instant. But ask the one thing that actually kept me up. The question of where I stood in this reorg. And the reply would land 3 days later, if it came at all. And it would say some version of nothing's been decided yet. She rescheduled our one-on-one twice. The second time, the new invite just said hold, no agenda. And then that one moved too. Meanwhile, the work of the 19 didn't disappear. It got quietly ladled onto the rest of us. I picked up 2 functions that used to be whole jobs. Nobody asked. It just showed up in my inbox with a due date. There was an all hands where a VP said the words were through the hardest part. And I wrote them down like they were a life raft. 2 weeks later, a director I respected was gone. A guy on my team, steady, 15 years in, asked her straight out in a meeting whether more cuts were coming. The room went still. She smiled and said she couldn't speculate and moved to the next slide. After that, the questions stopped. Everyone learned it. You don't ask. You perform being fine and hope the performance counts. And then came the request I couldn't stop turning over. She asked me, pleasantly, to write up documentation of my core processes. For continuity, she said, for the team. Maybe that's all it was. Or maybe you don't ask a man to write the instructions for his own job unless someone's thinking about who else could run it. I wrote the documentation. Of course I did. I just quietly made a copy for myself while I did. So what does a year of that do to a person? I can tell you what it did to me. I stopped sleeping right. I'd wake at 4 in the morning and lie there running numbers, how many months of savings we had, how long a search takes at my age, what I'd tell my kid if it came to that. Coffee went cold in my hand more mornings than I want to admit, because I'd be staring at nothing. Rehearsing a conversation that hadn't even happened. The guilt was the strange part. 19 people I'd worked beside were gone, and here I was, kept and quietly miserable about it. What right did I have to be scared? Any of them would have traded places with me in a heartbeat. So I didn't say a word of it out loud. I performed gratitude in the daylight and did math at night. And there was a thought underneath, the one I really didn't want to look at. Maybe I wasn't kept because I was good. Maybe I was kept because I was cheap and easy, and I never asked for anything. Maybe the exact behavior that felt like safety was the same behavior that made me simple to keep and simple to lose. I made myself smaller and called it strategy. I said yes to everything and filed it under value. Strip the label off, and what's underneath is a man trying to vanish into usefulness, hoping nobody would look at him long enough to draw a line through his name. What actually turned it was almost embarrassing. A spreadsheet opened one night around 11 for no good reason. I don't fully remember why I opened it. Maybe I just needed to feel like my hands were doing something. And I started listing what I'd actually accomplished in 11 years. The outcomes, not the busy work. The reconciliation process I rebuilt that saved the team something like 9 hours a week. The vendor mess I untangled. The 2 people I trained who both got promoted past me and thanked me for it. I sat there looking at that list, and something level happened in my chest. No fireworks. Just a small, flat thought that landed and refused to leave. If all of that was real, and it was right there in front of me, then why was I begging to be allowed to stay? I'd been treating my safety like it was hers to hand out. Like it lived in her silence, in whether she moved the one-on-one a third time. But it had never lived there. It had been in me the whole time, and I'd handed her the only key. That was the night I decided to make my own copy of it too. I stopped trying to be uncuttable, because there's no such thing, and I started building the one thing that actually changes how fear sits in your chest. Options. A real answer to the question, what would I do if the door didn't open on Monday? I did 4 things. None of them were dramatic. All of them were quiet. The first one turned that late-night spreadsheet into a habit. Every Friday, before I logged off, I wrote one line. What I'd shipped that week and the number attached to it. Hours saved, errors caught, dollars protected. Mine to keep. A running record of my own worth. Written in language a stranger at another company would understand. Within 2 months, it was 3 pages. And reading it back did something to my spine. The second thing was a coffee. One coffee, with a former teammate who'd been cut in the spring, the walking version of my nightmare, employed and fine. She'd landed somewhere better inside 11 weeks. I'd spent months fearing a fate I never once checked was even real. That 1 hour deleted a monster I'd been feeding since April. The third thing was a number. I sat down with our real finances, not the fog of dread, the actual figures, and worked out how many months we could survive with no paycheck coming in. The answer was 7 months. 7. Somehow the specific number frightened me less than the fog ever had. And then I started, slowly, pushing that number up. A little more set aside each month. Runway isn't glamorous, but it's the thing that quietly hands you back a say in your own life. The fourth thing was making myself portable again. I'd let my skills harden into this one company's way of doing everything. So I picked one thing that transfers anywhere and got current on it. An hour on Sunday evenings. Unglamorous, repetitive, mine. And the strangest part of all of it, I never quit. I didn't march in and resign. I just stopped being available in the way that had been slowly killing me. I stopped answering at 9 at night. I took an actual lunch. My work didn't get worse for it. It got better, because it was coming from a man who had a floor under him, instead of a man clinging to a ledge. Then, right as I'd started to feel almost steady, a calendar invite showed up. From her, titled, in full, Touch Base, 15 minutes, no agenda, nothing else. My first instinct was the old one, the cold drop, the certainty that this was the door. I sat with that invite for 2 days, not knowing whether I was about to be walked out or handed a project. 2 days of the old weather. But something had changed, and it took me a second to name it. The fear was still there. It just wasn't holding the wheel anymore. Because whatever was waiting behind that meeting, I had 3 pages of proof. A friend who'd already survived the thing I dreaded. 7 months of runway, and a skill that traveled. That invite couldn't reach a single one of those. Thursday came. I sat down across from her. She opened with, "I know I've been hard to reach." And it turned out to be nothing like the door. It was, of all things, an actual conversation, the first real one in a year, about a project she wanted me to own. I said yes. But I said it as a man who could have said no. If you're the one who got kept, then here it is straight. Being spared is not the same as being safe. Nobody said that to me for a whole year, and I needed someone to. And the gratitude they quietly expect from you, that grateful, don't make waves version of you, is very often the exact thing keeping you both dependent and disposable at the same time. Career insurance isn't a binder or a life hack. It's a stance. It's refusing to let one manager's silence be the only thing standing between you and the street. You cannot make yourself uncuttable. Please stop pouring your life into trying. Every company keeps the right to do math you're not in the room for. What you can do is make sure their math is never the only math that gets to decide your life. Security you're handed can be taken back in a meeting you didn't know was on the calendar. Options you build belong to you. And if you're lying awake at 4 a.m. doing the numbers, you're not weak, and you're not ungrateful. You're paying attention. Let's turn that attention into something you can actually hold in your hand. 4 moves, and you can start all of them before Friday. Open a blank document tonight and title it with your own name and the word evidence. Write down 3 things you've done this year with a number attached to each. Then add 1 line every Friday from now on. Second, find your number. Sit with your real finances and work out how many months you could last with no paycheck. Whatever it is, now you know it instead of fearing it. Then nudge it upward. Third, have 1 coffee this month with someone who left the company. Let them show you, in person, that the far side of the cliff has ground on it. That's the whole goal. Fourth, pick 1 skill that travels and give it a single hour this weekend. That's it. Boring on purpose. Boring is what a floor is made of. I'm still at that company, for now. That's not the triumphant ending, I know. I didn't get a movie moment. What I got was quieter, and honestly better. I got to stop being afraid of a door. The fear didn't vanish. I want to be straight with you about that, because I don't trust the videos that swear it disappears. It still visits, usually around 4 a.m, usually right before something uncertain. The difference now is that it doesn't get to drive. It rides along. It comments. And I keep going anyway, because there's a floor under me she didn't build and can't take back. If you were the one who was kept, hear this. You have more room to start than I did. I burned a whole year performing gratitude before I built a single option. You don't have to lose that year the way I lost mine. You can open the document tonight. So before you close this, your runway in months, do you actually know that number? Or have you just been avoiding it, the way I avoided mine? You don't have to fix it this week. Just go find it. And when you do, come down to the comments and tell me what it turned out to be. I'll be there, floor to floor.